The 10,000 hour rule doesn't just apply to athletes, musicians, and scientists. It also applies to CEOs and entrepreneurs too. Because becoming a truly great CEO isn't about talent or title. It's about time. Roughly 10,000 hours of hands-on leadership in the seat, making the hard calls and learning from every mistake. That's 5 full-time years of work. Actually, probably 4 if you're like most CEOs who are working 50 to 60 hours a week. So let's unpack this. The idea of the 10,000 hour rule was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers, where he argued that true mastery of any complex skill, whether it's playing violin, coding world-class software, or competing at the highest levels of a sport, requires roughly 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. It's not enough to show promise or have natural talent. The difference between good and great is often just time spent doing the work. And yet, we rarely apply this same logic to leadership. We mistakenly assume that CEOs are born, not made. But the truth is, becoming an integrated, effective CEO requires just as much dedicated practice as any other high-performance discipline. You have to learn how to lead across functions, how to manage your own psychology, how to navigate teams, capital, customer, and crises, all while holding your vision steady. This is the kind of depth that just doesn't come from instinct. It comes only from experience. So if you're a new CEO or you're thinking about becoming a CEO at some point in your career, or frankly, if you're even a CEO now, don't panic if you don't feel ready for the job. You're not supposed to feel ready because readiness comes from doing, from learning, from putting in the hours. Hi, I'm RJ, the CEO coach. I'm a retired 6-time venture and private equity backed CEO who now coaches CEOs to become their own elite best selves, more focused, more effective, and more fulfilled in their roles as leaders. If that sounds like the kind of grounded leadership advice you want more of, please hit like and subscribe. Every week, I break down what it really takes to lead like a pro, not to survive the job, but to grow and flourish in it. Let's start with the obvious. Being a CEO is the hardest job in business. And the learning curve, it's totally brutal. You're not responsible for one department anymore. You're responsible for the whole kit and caboodle, the whole thing. The vision, the culture, the capital, the people, the strategy, the execution, and most importantly, the results. And while other people have bosses above them who guide their performance, give feedback, or approve decisions, you don't. It's a very lonely job. When you're the CEO, the buck stops with you, and the guidance often ends with you. In your first few years as a CEO, you'll almost certainly make the same mistakes that every rookie CEO makes. You'll hire too fast, and you'll regret it later. You'll avoid hard conversations, and then until they become unavoidable messes. You'll mismanage your calendar, thinking you're being available when you're really just being reactive and scatterbrained. You'll burn energy in all the wrong places and wrong directions, which means probably burning cash too. Trying to solve every problem yourself instead of building systems that scale. And unless you take the time to reflect on those mistakes, you'll probably repeat them over and over again. And that's the trap. Without intentional learning, failure just becomes the pattern. So why does it really take 10,000 hours to really grow into this role? One major reason is that CEOs aren't just leading, they're learning every single major function of a business, and that's no small feat. Look, you don't need to be a specialist in every department. You shouldn't try and out-engineer your CTO or out-market your CMO, but you do need to be competent across every function. You need to understand it because you're the one person who spans the entire organization. You're the bridge between all the silos in your company, the translator between the specialists, the leader who needs to understand the whole game and not just your favorite position. Here are the core areas you need to get comfortable with. Finance. You need to understand budgets, cash flow, forecast, gross margin, burn rate. Not to run the numbers yourself, but to know what healthy looks like and when something's off. Marketing. Messaging, positioning, branding, acquisition channels. You're responsible for telling the story and making sure the market hears it. Sales, whether it's direct sales, enterprise, self-serve, you've got to know what scalable sales process looks like. That means understanding how to set goals, build pipelines, and coach your team. Product management is another one. Knowing what to build, when to build it, and how to prioritize. Great CEOs understand the difference between product vision and feature creep. Technology and engineering. You don't need to code, but you do need to understand architectural trade-offs, technology decisions, technical debt, how to evaluate timelines and risk. And of course, HR and recruiting, Businesses are all about people. People run businesses. Hiring is the highest leverage thing that a CEO does. You need to know how to find talent, build org structures, design onboarding, maintain a culture that scales. Operations, supply chain, and logistics. If you build, move, or manufacture anything, these are essential. Operations can make or break your margin. And of course, you've got things like client success and support. It's not enough just to land customers. You've got to know how to retain customers and grow them. CEOs need to know how support impacts NPS, retention, product feedback loops. So there's a lot, and I haven't even covered everything. And you won't master it all in a quarter or even a year. That's why it takes time. It takes real time. This is a great place to pause and ask you, which of these functions has been the hardest for you to get your head around as a CEO? Was it finance, sales, HR? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear where you struggled or grown the most. I read every one. So what do those 10,000 hours really look like? Well, they look like leading through chaos. When your product fails, your team is exhausted, and you're out of good options. They look like firing somebody that you once recruited and convinced to join you because the business has changed and they haven't. They look like navigating board meetings where everyone has an opinion, but only you have the responsibility. They also look like letting go of control, delegating deeply, letting other people own real outcomes even when it feels very risky to let it go yourself. They also look like learning how to earn trust, set the pace, and hold people accountable, not with fear, but with clarity. And lastly, they look like doing all of that with nobody above you telling you how to do it. This work is relentless, but it's also transformational. The first 10,000 hours are where your leadership identity is forged. Now let's look at this from a slightly different angle. Here's a word for boards, investors, and founders who may be wanting to hire a CEO. If you're bringing in somebody new to the chair, don't expect mastery, expect growth, expect humility, and look for coachability and a willingness to put in the reps, because that's where the real upside is. And if you're a founder CEO still figuring it out in year 1 or year 2, stop beating yourself up. You're not failing, you're learning a craft. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. The best leaders in the world didn't walk into the role with all the answers. They earned their wisdom 1 hour at a time. Now, here's the good news. You don't have to learn everything the hard way. That's why I built the 30-day CEO Playbook, to help you compress years of painful lessons into 30 days of focused, intentional practice. It's not a replacement for your 10,000 hours, but it is a way to make every one of those hours smarter and faster. Inside the playbook, you'll learn how to set effective cadence for your team so the company runs without chaos. You'll build decision-making systems that scale, and you'll align your calendar with your actual job, not just your inbox. And you'll also learn how to communicate like a CEO, not a middle manager. Most CEOs spend years figuring all this out. The 30-day CEO Playbook helps you get there faster with fewer scars and fewer potholes. All right, before we wrap this up, let me just say this. Being a CEO isn't just a job title. It is a discipline. And like any discipline, whether it's playing piano or training for a marathon, it takes time, reps, and intentional effort. But it doesn't have to take forever. If you're ready to grow into the kind of leader your company actually needs, then start your 10,000 hours with purpose. Check out the 30-day CEO Playbook. It's linked below. And while you're there, also hit the like and subscribe buttons and share this video with a fellow leader who needs a little encouragement. I'm RJ, the CEO Coach, and I'll see you next time. And hopefully you're a few hours more on your journey to 10,000 hours at mastering the CEO role.